In this video, I'm going to look at the word shalom, which is Hebrew for peace, by way of looking at Psalms 120, verse 7, which is through the lens of war. As you can see, I've opened up to Genesis 1, verse 11 as the left off point of the last video to reiterate that the study of seed is a created blessing from the Creator that puts forth a fullness of God's will enabled in you um, by way of itself. And self-willed self is in relation to the blessing of the seed. This it is meant to be God's will. And when you align with God, you let go of self-willed self and worship God properly to enter into a vow in worship, and even this letter is a vow also, uh, vow and vow in relation to how to be one with God. A meaningful part of the latter study is brought through Jeremiah 3:8. Specifically, the study of the causes for divorce is brought through the word rod, oath, and oath is promise, vow, covenant, and word value, etc. The study of causes is brought into the subject of adultery, and that's how to worship false gods, to apostatize, how to enter into breaking wedlock. To divorce is to break wedlock, and that's worshiping a false god. It's right here, figurative of idolatrous worship. Um, so to say that it's sex would be an example of what idolatrous worship is. You're not letting God be God, not letting God define um, the definition of adultery. And I reiterate whose seed is in itself on the defining of adultery. Here I've opened up how to discern what cause and effect is in relation to religious differences in who God is, Jewish law as compared to Christian law, or the Quran as the Islam word of God. It's part of the wars between Israel and Iran currently, and the United States. Here I've opened up the word study of 853, it coming out of a study of oath in Rod Oath. That part of this study is not only the study of self in um, pertinence to whose seed is in itself, but also it brings forward a namely. Here I've opened up to see the Israel judicial branch is butted up to my last name, uh, except for it's divided by the word it, as whose seed is in itself. You might wonder how to be one with God through Christ. As I look a little closer, I see that the it begins to be modified and into a T. It's broadly a rabbinic court, which is an ecclesiastical court, which is a religious court um, that addresses matters such as divorce and etc. As I turn back to Psalms 120, verse 7, I can't help but acknowledge the effects of what war is. You can enter into a organizational structure that enables a chain of command that is rather likened unto a military abbreviation of what's MIL mean. Um, it can mean military, um, but also in a speaker speller government consideration, you can have a speaker speak the words "Am I one?" and have it be a question while the speller writes "MIL." And of course, even King James addresses the question of "Are you one?" Because in Matthew 19, verse 5, it ends with a question mark. Shall be one flesh? Question mark. Oops, you're not one flesh until you walk the walk. You can't just talk the talk of I promise and then not do what you say. Otherwise, you're not one. Am I one? And that brings me to finally landing on the subject of peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. And of course, I define they in relation to uh, God versus motherhood and the seed. Um, but they can be also the different beliefs of the different religions that land on trying to address God within their self-willed self and within their spirit and within sincerity and within etc. till pretty soon uh, everybody's parted on the difference between their belief and uh, God's intended meaning. Meanwhile, as I look to this word, which is shalom, which is meant to be perfect peace, uh, I find it to be missing the letter SH right here. And I can't help but fathom that even though it's supposed to be letter for letter, transliteration, sometimes they use pronunciation letters also. Instead of a transliteration, they did interpretation of what wisdom is meant to be. If you're going to open your mouth and cause a war by opening your mouth, it's better to address peace by shutting your mouth and go shh. But um, but the shh is absent right here um, because it's not enabling peace. And of course, that's a common choice in trying to address somebody else's religion, somebody else's beliefs, somebody else's choices, somebody else's free will, somebody else's etc. Then you have to know when to shush your own mouth. But here, as I opened my mouth, opened up the study, was in Clipchamp to deliver it. I came out of Clipchamp to see that the president started a war with Iran. Meanwhile, the ABC Nightly News uh, brought forward a peace negotiations by way of Trump versus Iran's response. And this was on March 25th.
Tonight, Iran flatly rejecting President Trump's 15-point plan to end the war, insisting no negotiations are taking place, despite what the president says.
They want to make a deal so badly.
But Iran's foreign minister today declaring there are no negotiations with the enemy. Iran sarcastically asking if Americans were negotiating with yourselves.
Are you trying to negotiate with yourself? Which I took to be rather uniquely personal in whose seat is in itself. But in the YouTube recordation slash ABC News recordation, absent commercials, it was at 9 minutes 11 seconds that the foreign minister of Iran spoke the word negotiation. Ironically, um, it was long lines at the airports that was also the news. It is part of the 9/11 drama out of Twin Towers.